Welcome to Arrow News Channel. Like and subscribe to update news around the world. Traitor Bradley Manning became famous for leaking mass amounts of documentation to WikiLeaks, spending 7 years in prison, and later being freed by former President Barrack Obama. Manning participated in traitorous behavior and became a full-blown anti-American transgender. Barack Obama commuted Manning's 35-year sentence, but his tirade against America didn't stop. Brad became Chelsea, and he lives a lie trying to get others to accept his identity change. But the identity change is just another one of his gimmicks, much like his careless handling of documents. After Obama restored Manning's freedom, Manning then seemed to become hostile towards Americans, mostly Republicans, and anyone who refuses to believe or accept a full-grown man in a dress who claims he is a woman. As Manning runs amok on his gender identity crisis, anti-American barrage on social media, an inability to be thankful for the country he ditched, but later freed him, he then makes a sudden announcement much more distracting than his change from pants to a dress. Manning announced that he would run for Senate. People gasped at the notion that someone who mishandled that many American documents would want to run for a position with the government. Not only was this man a traitor to his country and comrades, but he spends time on social media trashing about with his generic nonsense that Americans can't stand. Now he wants to represent Americans in the government with a seat in the Senate. There appears to be a significant conflict of interest for the country, but possibly an illegal situation as well. But there's a catch. The catch isn't that someone has to zip up his dress in the back. The catch means Manning could be sent back to prison for running for Senate. Based upon Manning's status with the military and criminal conviction, there are two possible routes for him to be ineligible to run for Senate. Doing so could result in prosecution and a return to prison for the transgender traitor. Daily Caller had more information about Manning's potential run for Senate. The Army further stated that Manning holds an active duty identification card and acknowledged his status and access to government health care prior to his release. While Manning's felony conviction does not appear to automatically disqualify run for office, his active duty status presents a much more troubling issue. Such a status, in other words, has enormous implications for engaging in any kind of political activity, especially a Senate run. Drew Bradley, retired Army Judge Advocate General and President of the National Institute of Military Justice, told the Daily Caller News Foundation that on the face of it, Manning is prohibited by Department of Defense regulations from running for office while serving in an active duty capacity. The only exception is if Secretary of Defense James Mattis grants explicit permission, a power that cannot be delegated by a secretary to anyone else. According to Bradley, the regulation in question is DoD Directive 1344.10 Directive 1344.10, Political Activities by Members of the Armed Forces, dated February 9, 2008, para. 4.2.2. That paragraph is punitive and violation of it subjects her to courts-martial for violation of a lawful order or regulation under Article 92, Bradley told the DCNF. Her activities campaigning for herself and fundraising for herself may also violate other provisions of the DoD Directive, themselves separately punishable under the UCMJ, Art. 92. Bradley added that prosecution in this case is a discretionary decision by her chain of command. Victor M. Hansen, law professor at New England Law and former military lawyer, also agreed that Manning's run for office is legally prohibited and could result in prosecution. Based on the information from Daily Caller, it appears as though the only way that Manning can run, without facing prosecution, is to receive a granted permission from James Mattis. As per the law, it appears as though the Department of Defense does not permit running for office while still listed as an active duty participant. If that's the case with Manning, then Manning must seek permission, and forgiveness, from General Mattis. Receiving that from Mattis might be next to impossible after the implications of Manning's mishandling of documents and work with WikiLeaks. When a former military attorney agrees that Manning is legally prohibited from running for Senate and could face prosecution, then that's information that one must believe is right. Mr. Hansen, who now teaches law, would be at risk of providing false information if his words were untrue. He wouldn't risk that when there's nothing for him to gain upon delivering, or agreeing with, data that suggests Manning's run for Senate is unlawful. There's many Americans who would enjoy watching Manning placed in handcuffs again. If he runs for Senate, then it could certainly go that route, and it will be an ugly battle. Americans reacted strongly to Manning's announcement.